On a rainy day at the beach, a young boy named Tommy runs up and introduces himself to Rebecca, who quietly watches the rain from beneath a wooden boardwalk. When he hears footsteps behind him, he suddenly dashes into the downpour, leaving the girl without saying goodbye. After the rain stops, Rebecca gets dressed and hears small stones tapping against her window. Looking outside, she sees Tommy, and the two ride their bikes to the beach together. Later, Rebecca pretends to fall asleep in her new friend's room. Tommy's father, Ralph, receives a call from Rebecca's grandfather and allows her to stay the night. Delighted by the news, the children excitedly continue playing together. The next day, Tommy leads Rebecca to an abandoned boat near the shore, where they quietly watch the hazy coastline. At Rebecca's house, the two friends notice a tiny snail. Tommy says he plans to take it to the sea the following day, but Rebecca reveals that she will soon be leaving for her mother's place in Japan on the 72nd floor. As Rebecca prepares to leave the room, Tommy follows her to the door and suddenly kisses her. Startled, the girl quickly runs away. Later, while taking a bath, Rebecca receives a call from Tommy, who is watching a storm at the beach. He tells her he will see her off the next morning at the ferry because he wants to show her something, making Rebecca blush. Their call, however, abruptly ends when the bad weather disrupts the signal. The following day at the dock, Rebecca looks back, but Tommy is nowhere to be seen. Her grandfather sends her off, and she gazes longingly at the beach as the ferry slowly departs. 12 years later, Rebecca returns as a young woman to her late grandfather's now empty house, hoping to find her childhood love. She bikes to Tommy's old home and meets his mother, Judith, who tells her that Tommy no longer lives there. Recognizing Rebecca, Judith amusedly explains that her son once wanted to chase after her to Tokyo because he had longed for his childhood sweetheart. She then points Rebecca toward the harbor near the embankment, where Tommy now lives. Rebecca finds a secluded house by the harbor. She quietly slips inside, while a dog watches her curiously. Inside, she notices a young woman lying on a bed reading a book. Moments later, a young man enters and asks who the stranger is. Rebecca simply smiles, and Tommy recognizes her through their silent exchange. Realizing who she is, the woman on the bed introduces herself as Rose, Tommy's current date. Soon after, the childhood friends naturally reconnect. Rebecca has graduated and now designs software for sonar devices that detect cracks in underground tanks. Tommy jokes about how his dog seems unusually fond of Rebecca for letting her inside. Feeling jealous, Rose gets up and leaves. Sensing the awkwardness of the situation, Rebecca also decides to go. The next day, Rebecca sees Tommy playing in the rain, and the two head down to the beach together. Tommy explains that Rose is not his girlfriend while casually removing his clothes before running into the sea, splashing among the waves as Rebecca watches him. That evening, they share dinner at Rebecca's house. During the meal, Rebecca recalls the day Tommy actually arrived before she left for Japan. Curious, she asks what he wanted to show her back then. Anticipating the question, Tommy pulls a small matchbox from his pocket and hands it to her. Inside is the empty shell of the snail they had found 12 years earlier. He had wanted Rebecca to take it with her to Japan as a keepsake. But on the morning she left, he overslept and missed the ferry. Instead, he kept the snail and cared for it for a year, until it eventually died. That night, the two childhood friends confess their feelings for each other. Tommy kisses Rebecca, and she returns the kiss for a moment before pulling away, unsettled by the unfamiliar intensity of their attraction. The next morning, they playfully chase each other along the beach. While lying on the sand, Tommy tells Rebecca that he will be gone for 2 days. When she insists on coming with him, he warns that it is too dangerous. Back at Tommy's house, he reveals his plan to infiltrate a biotechnology corporation operating under the name Sparkling Park. Built on reclaimed wetlands, the facility secretly conducts animal cloning. Tommy explains that he belongs to an environmental activist group called the Pollen Group, which plans to create chaos during the park's launch in order to expose the company's unethical activities. He even shows Rebecca a container filled with cockroaches that they intend to release into the crowd to disrupt the event. Although shocked by the scheme, Rebecca decides to join him. That weekend, Tommy hurriedly loads his parents' car with the supplies needed for the mission. After saying goodbye to them, he and Rebecca drive away. During the long journey, Rebecca smiles at the thought of their bizarre plan involving the cockroaches. At one point, she asks Tommy to stop the car in the middle of a field so she can relieve herself. She steps out and walks farther away, and Tommy follows shortly after. Suddenly, Rebecca hears the sound of a violent crash as another vehicle strikes Tommy. Dazed, she slowly returns to the car and stares in disbelief at his lifeless body, silently struggling to hold back her tears. Later, alone in her room, Rebecca opens the matchbox Tommy once gave her and discovers a folded note inside. Written in Tommy's childhood handwriting, it promises that he will wait for her while she is away. She scrolls through pictures of him on her laptop, including a video of him smiling amid the chaos of one of his protests. Overwhelmed with grief, Rebecca visits Tommy's grave, where she seems to form a plan. Soon afterward, she finds Tommy's father, Ralph, standing by the sea and offers him comfort as he mourns the loss of his only son. Later, Rebecca invites both of Tommy's grieving parents to dinner. Judith, however, refuses to sit quietly and asks Rebecca to explain what she wants to say. Rebecca leads them to a newly renovated nursery. Judith looks at the decorations with a sad smile, assuming that Rebecca is expecting a child. Instead, Rebecca reveals that Tommy could be reborn through her. Judith looks at her husband, who already understands the proposal. Rebecca then shows them a consent form from the Department of Genetic Replication, which offers to retrieve DNA from the deceased in order to create a clone. Despite not being deeply religious, Judith refuses to disturb the dead and chooses to accept their loss. Ralph, however, thinks differently. The following day, he gives Rebecca the completed consent form and tells her that he and Judith plan to move far away. He urges Rebecca to stay by the coast, since Tommy always loved the sea. Before leaving, he asks her to think carefully about the decision, but Rebecca has already made up her mind. Soon after, Rebecca undergoes the procedure at the Department of Genetic Replication. Rose, now working there as a nurse, notices Rebecca leaving the facility. Months later, a pregnant Rebecca smiles gently as she feels the baby moving inside her. She visits Tommy's grave and speaks to him with quiet anticipation, believing he will soon return. Not long afterward, Rebecca gives birth to Tommy's clone through a cesarean operation. 3 months later, she walks along the beach with the infant in her arms. She passes other mothers with their babies, who kindly offer her some pie, but she politely declines and returns home alone. Over the years, Rebecca raises Tommy alone as his mother. One day, the young boy refuses to listen to her and hides under a blanket. In an attempt to comfort him, Rebecca tells him that his father died in a car accident before he was born, referring to the fate of the real Tommy. The boy, a clone of the original Tommy as a child, grows very close to Rebecca. At the same time, Rebecca shows an intense and unusual affection for him, loving him far more deeply than a typical mother might. One day in the woods, Rebecca notices Tommy and his friend Eric watching a girl named Dima, who is playing with her rabbit. Tommy stares at the girl curiously, and she looks back at him for a moment before saying goodbye and walking away. Rebecca tries to invite Dima over, but the girl politely declines without turning back. Later, Tommy asks Eric if he can smell Dima, and Eric says he can. Confused, Rebecca learns from the boys that clones have a distinct scent caused by their skin, something they have noticed about Dima. Unknown to Tommy, he himself is also a clone of Rebecca's late beloved. At school, Rebecca faces judgment from the teacher and other mothers, who have heard that she once invited the cloned girl Dima into her home. While Rebecca sees nothing wrong with it, the women argue that the concept of clones is too complicated for their children to understand, even though cloning has become common in the news. The teacher further reveals that Dima is actually a clone of her own grandmother, which unsettles the other parents. Unaware that Rebecca's son is also a clone, they continue criticizing the practice. Distressed, Rebecca pretends to agree with their prejudice and quietly leaves. She then picks up Tommy, who is happily playing with water balloons with his friends. Later, Rebecca and Tommy collect pine cones in the woods to prepare for his upcoming birthday party. On their bike ride home, they pass by the group of mothers along with Rose, who appears to have revealed the truth about Tommy. Unaware of this, Rebecca and Tommy decorate their home and excitedly prepare for the celebration. But when the time comes, none of the invited children arrive. Rebecca learns that the parents have discovered Tommy is a clone and refuse to let their children attend. Despite the empty house, Rebecca serves Tommy his birthday cake. The boy, unaware of his true identity, wonders if Dima might be the reason no one came. Heartbroken, he hugs his mother while Rebecca breaks down in tears. Soon afterward, the two move to a secluded house by the sea to escape the judgment of others. One day at the shore, Tommy shows Rebecca 2 horseshoe crabs, creatures that were once believed to be extinct. Their presence suggests that genetic replication is now being used to revive endangered or lost species. Back at home, Rebecca surprises Tommy with a robotic dinosaur toy. She suggests naming it Bingo after the original Tommy's dog, but the boy chooses the name Boo Boo instead. On a misty afternoon, the two sit together on a rusty, abandoned boat, the same one the real Tommy once showed Rebecca years ago. From there, they watch a pair of bison grazing in the distance, another species thought to have disappeared long ago. Soon after, A neighboring boy named Mark introduces himself. Excited to have a new friend, Tommy lends him his binoculars. One night, while Rebecca works on her laptop, Tommy asks questions about his father's accident. Rebecca answers truthfully, recounting the real Tommy's death. Even after all these years, she still carries guilt, believing the tragedy happened because she asked him to stop the car that day. On a bright morning, Rebecca and Tommy play together outside, chasing each other near the swings. The game ends when Tommy tackles his mother and pins her down. Breathing heavily, they stare into each other's eyes. In that moment, Rebecca behaves in a way that blurs the boundary between motherly affection and something more troubling, subtly suggesting her feelings for him may not be entirely maternal. Suddenly, Mark arrives and interrupts them, breaking the tense and unsettling moment between Rebecca and Tommy. Afterward, the two boys bury Tommy's broken robotic toy in the sand, mirroring the way he buries his confusing feelings toward his mother. That evening, Rebecca somehow discovers it, retrieves the toy, and returns it to Tommy, who tries to sleep through his mother's unusual behavior. Years later, the clone reaches the age when the original Tommy died. Rebecca serves breakfast in Tommy's room and finds a young woman, Monica, under his bed sheets. At the table, Tommy tells his mother that Monica will be staying for a while, and Rebecca smiles, pretending to approve of his girlfriend. On the swing, Tommy enthusiastically marvels at the uniqueness of living things, sharing his passion for science with Monica, who finds him childish. The couple shares a kiss, witnessed by Rebecca from inside the house. Since Monica's arrival, Rebecca has been miserable, sulking at home from jealousy. One day, she pretends to read while Tommy enters with a pie Monica baked. Rebecca, looking unwell, sets it aside. Over the winter, Rebecca's resentment toward Monica grows. While Monica jogs outside, Tommy sleeps in the cold of his room. Rebecca covers him with a blanket and slips beside him. He snuggles unknowingly, only pulling away when he realizes she's there. Moments later, Monica enters, kissing Tommy while Rebecca watches silently from under the covers. Not wanting to expose his mother, Tommy finds an excuse and leads Monica to the bathroom. One day, after returning from playing with a fishnet, Tommy notices Rebecca on the patio. He showers her with kisses, slipping under her shirt, and she does not resist. Monica hesitates at the door, sensing the tension between mother and son. Eventually, Tommy steps away and follows his girlfriend inside. That night, Rebecca stays awake, listening to their heated intimacy. In the early morning, Rebecca gazes silently out the window. Monica tries to engage her awkwardly, but Rebecca simply stares in confusion. After a swim, Tommy encounters an old woman on the patio, Judith, the original Tommy's mother, who looks at him sorrowfully. He approaches, asking who she is, but she remains silent. Rebecca watches nervously at the unexpected visitor. Judith eventually walks away, and Rebecca refuses to answer Tommy's questions. That night, lying beside her son, Rebecca slowly caresses him in silence. Tommy abruptly rises when Monica calls. The next morning at breakfast, Tommy lashes out, furiously shaking the salt shaker and throwing things on the floor, shocking Monica. He pours salt into his food and points at Rebecca, declaring that he remembers the old woman before storming outside. Monica calls for him, but he locks himself in the bathroom. When he finally emerges, he sees Monica with her bag. His mother sulks on the bed, and Monica realizes whom he chooses, leaving quickly. Moments later, Rebecca gives Tommy her old laptop, containing all of the original Tommy's memories. Stunned by the revelation that he is a clone of his mother's late beloved, he seizes Rebecca by the neck and throws her on the bed. Overcome, he repeatedly demands to know who she is. Though she answers, she provokes him and kisses him, leading to an intimate encounter. Rebecca bleeds, implying her virginity until that moment. In the end, she smiles, having fulfilled her long-held desire. Later, Tommy gathers his bags and bids a final farewell, addressing the woman who brought him into the world by name. Rebecca, alone in the isolated beach house where it all began, soon discovers she is pregnant with her beloved's clone.
And that's the end of the story. I hope you liked it. Comment down below what movies do you like us to recap next. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.